I got word that one of the people who had opposed the placement of the marker wanted to meet with me, this is the tenant at the site of where the Uptown Club used to be. And also wanted me to, first time that the owner could be there was last Friday. And as it happened, the plan was with Tom Sappington and others to go ahead. The post had already been placed there for several days. This was on, at that time was on Calvert Street. And the plan was to put the marker on that post Friday morning. And I contacted the people charged with that, asked them to wait till after my meeting with the tenant and the owner. You can question whether or not it was the right decision or not. It caused one workday's delay of the placement of the sign. And this has actually been my policy full time that I've been mayor and on council, is that with any projects where there is opposition, no matter whom, no matter whether they vote, no matter race, color, creed, what have you, political party, if they wanted to meet with me, I was quite willing to meet with them. We met, again, with the owner, with the tenant, and while there was not much change ultimately, to their credit, they're not the first people to be confused about their town boundaries. Most renters don't understand quite where their land boundaries are, and quite a number of owners don't really know. And ultimately, both the owner and the tenant suggested moving it, the post from where it was on Calvert Street around to College Avenue, which I agreed to because I was not aware of anybody who had objected to that, and I'd heard that Monica Graves had actually wanted it on College Avenue. The one area where there was disagreement was that the owner and tenant both wanted the sign down kind of a podium on the ground. It would not have been nearly as visible. Some people thought that it would have been disrespectful. A little bit of backdrop on this. We were not aware of opposition to this until very late in the game. Bill, I think you talked with one of the co-owners, and they did not voice opposition. It was pretty late in the game that we realized that somebody was opposing it. And some people felt, oh, well, it doesn't matter if they oppose it. And ultimately, the majority does rule, but I felt it was important to listen to the people. After meeting, I came home, wrote a note to all of the council people, giving them an update on what I had discussed, what I was recommending. And right after having sent that, I walked down the street right out here, met with John Queen, Karen Somerville, ultimately Reverend Brown and others. And they persuaded me that putting it down on the ground was just not what the community wanted. They too saw it as disgraceful. Bear in mind that under our structure, our town council meets 2 days a month. We're also forbidden to gather in off hours any more than 2 of us at a time. So it was not feasible to reconvene this meeting. So a little bit I was on my own. Went back, sought to get back with the renter and homeowner and tell them that no, we had considered it, but it just wasn't going to be viable.
So for me, the plan gave me those tactical steps on which I could rely, right? One of the most impactful parts was the Equity Advisory Committee, and I see a few members here. And as you know, John, I was interested in having that Equity Advisory Committee continue on. Because I think that when we have these conversations, and especially when we have conversations like tonight, where we're trying to balance the interests of a property owner and their tenants who pay property taxes and maybe don't want the sign flat out, don't understand what the sign is about, don't understand what the issue is, whatever the underlying causes are, but also there's a community need, right? We need a way to have these conversations that benefits the council and helps us understand the issues. Because I know from my perspective, and I think there are a lot of people in this room who know me, I'm a computer guy, I'm a software developer, so things are logical for me, and I look for Booleans, I look for true-false statements, and I try and navigate that way. But these issues aren't that, right? These issues are harder, and they contain emotion and passion and fire. And I think that it's hard for council people, especially new council people, to fully engage with that. When you're trying to balance, what you see in the charter or in our ordinances, for instance, or what you think might be best for the community, but then also balance that with what is best for all of our residents that you may not see, that might be blind to you.
The plan Chestertown Unites Against Racism came in 2020, and the goal was to help the Black community feel empowered, but the community as a whole to move forward. With those pillars, if you look in the legislation pillar, one of those pillars is the Equity Advisory Committee. But before we get to the Equity Advisory Committee, we get to a resolution. That resolution is 052020, which they all voted for unanimously to make Chestertown Unites Against Racism a plan that has accountability by using legislation. Are we all on the same page with that? So they have accountability when they form the Equity Advisory Committee to govern the plan. So when the plan is supposed to be governed, you must present your idea to the Equity Advisory Committee. The 10 community leaders that these council members all handpicked, then discuss the issues and then bring it to the town and advise the town on the next steps. Everyone clear on that? Because we can't talk about the sign without everyone clear on why the plan is in place. So with that, the second pillar, after the resolution and giving the Equity Advisory Committee the legislative power to handle some of these issues that are going on with race, the next step is education, which is one of those pillars. The education pillar, historical signage, is one of those pillars.
Good evening, Councilor and Mayor. I am Monica Graves Bentley. I am the daughter of Charles Graves, who was the proprietor and owner of the Uptown Club. The club was an establishment, multicultural center that was prevalent in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. It was an entertainment hub and a work environment for the Uptown community and for the African Americans that were in here in Kent County. It provided entertainment, it provided jobs, it provided acceptance for all the communities in Chestertown and surrounding Chestertown. So when I was approached earlier this year, the committees wanted to do the historical signage, I was very excited because my father's legacy is very important to me and also to other members in the community in whole in Chestertown. And that was evident when we had our first Legacy Day. First Legacy Day was in reference and honoring my father and the club. And that Legacy Day was one of the most attended that they've had so far. So I know that, he was instrumental in bringing all people together in the community, not just African Americans, but everybody that lives here in Kent County.
I think that you already know that John has made it plain that this, I wrote a proposal when Chris Arena was still the mayor, and the proposal was to establish historic signage for local African American history. I wrote that proposal under the pillars of education that was established by the Equity Advisory Committee. At the time, I can say that at this time, the town of Chestertown has not paid for any sign at all. All of the funding for those signs have come from private donors and in collaboration with the Curation Fellowship that I received from Washington College through the Chesapeake Heartlands Project. When this initiative was passed by the council in 2020, in response to that proposal, it was stipulated that the signs would be installed on private property when applicable, and then getting the permission of the property owners. That they would also be installed on property that is owned by the town. And when Chris was here, he was good enough to come out actually with us, with Cindy Fulton and myself, for the first sign. And we proposed a couple of sites, and he walked the grounds with us to make sure that we were selecting areas that were owned by the town. We were also informed that in any event that any of these properties turned out to be properties that were under the jurisdiction of the county, that we would have to go another route. So we have been fully informed, and we have made it a point to dot our proverbial I's and cross our T's. As for how many signs will be installed, well, so far we have the sign down at the waterfront. We have now the Uptown Club sign. The next two signs are going to be installed at Garnett Elementary School. There's two. There's one that's going to be inside and another that's going to be outside on the grounds. That is under the jurisdiction of the Board of Education. All of that has been fully passed unanimously by the Board of Education, and the signs have been ordered, and it is not anything that the town needs to be involved in, except to be supportive in terms of perhaps showing up for the unveiling. And with that, I stress that because we were very disappointed that no one was present when we unveiled the Uptown Club signage. I have to stress that that's something that has been felt deeply.
It's about the black community and having you understand. You just got to hear this out. When the Equity Advisory Committee was in charge of policing all of those things. James Teller lynching was doing the work. That's why I wrote him in the plan. Me and Chris wrote the plan. We picked who were doing the work.
Well, I'm saying,
so when we
don't say the support wasn't there. The community.
No. The
The
support for Chestertown Unites Against Racism has just said that they feel like the support kind of moved around when Chris Serino resigned. This is people who served on the committee you all appointed. What we think in the black community, if you all are constantly making efforts to stop progress in our community. You're asking a question, I'm telling you what the community is saying and what the Advisory Equity Committee thinks to a degree. I'm telling you, once again, I'm sitting here telling you what everyone is saying, but you all are taking your individual moments and not being a governing body and governed by the rules you set. These are laws and resolutions that you all set.
Fair enough. But we're a group of white people sitting up here, and time again, I have heard from you, John, and I know this isn't about you, but I've heard from other members of the black community. Tom, you need to listen to the black community. You need to follow their guidance. If I sat up here and said, the 16-month plan was great, and now I've got a 10-more-month plan, John Queen would have sat up here and said, Tom, sit down, we'll work with you on this, or whatever. The point is not that this council doesn't want to do it. It's that we need guidance from the black community to help us formulate those plans.
We want to make sure that when we come to you all, you follow the plan and we all get to execute the things for our community. That's all we asking. But every time we try to explain where we are and how we feel, you all get defensive and shut down. We're not attacking you all personally.
Yeah.
We're trying to hold you accountable for the laws and the procedures and the ordinances and resolutions you have voted for.